Have you ever pondered why, for centuries, a familiar narrative has echoed through time? That bringing a child into the world is life's most sacred calling. It's regarded as the ultimate proof of a life well lived. Parents are lauded, while those without children often receive glances of sympathy or even pity. This belief is so deeply ingrained in our minds that few of us dare to question it. Yet, did you know, philosophy often springs from precisely those questions deemed taboo? And it was the great German thinker Arthur Schopenhauer who boldly posed a question that continues to haunt humanity's thoughts to this very day. If life itself is an incessant struggle, if our desires merely shackle us to a vortex of suffering, then, bringing another soul into that fray, is it an act of love or merely a hasty, ill-considered decision? Imagine a moment most people consider the happiest of their lives. A young couple, holding their newborn for the very first time, their eyes brimming with overwhelming joy. The room is bathed in warmth, and the future ahead seems to unfold with boundless promise. Yet, who truly knows what lies hidden beneath those radiant smiles? It's the long, sleepless nights, the crushing burden of debt, and the silent dread that their own dreams are slowly being forgotten, buried. That child had no say in choosing this life, and soon, these parents will realize the true weight of a decision they were taught never to question. Schopenhauer believed that beneath all romantic hopes and familial ideals lies what he termed will, a blind, relentless impulse that compels life itself to perpetually procreate. It promises meaning, yet ultimately leads only to more desires, more unending struggles. He called the act of procreation the invisible chain by which the will shackles humanity into an endless loop of suffering. Tonight, we are not gathered here to laud or condemn any parent. Rather, we are here to confront a thorny issue that much of society consistently seeks to evade. Is it possible that choosing to create a new life isn't always the inherently good act we're often told it is? But rather, it's a decision that conceals a profound cost, both for the parents and for the child, far deeper than we are willing to acknowledge. This is not a sermon against family values. Rather, it is a sincere invitation for each of us to engage in collective contemplation, so that we may discern the powerful forces silently shaping our decisions, from nature's primal urges, deeply ingrained cultural myths, to even the yearning to leave a legacy. These forces propel us down a path that, at first glance, appears noble, but is it also a path we are treading blindly? Have you ever questioned whether the path society has prescribed for us, from education, career, marriage, to parenthood, is the sole option, or merely a well-worn rut? If you've ever pondered whether you are truly making free decisions, or merely unconsciously following a script that has existed for millennia, then congratulations, you've found precisely the content you need. This video will embark on a profound exploration of Schopenhauer's somber philosophy of the will. We will dissect the true psychological and existential cost of deciding to bring a new life into this world, while simultaneously challenging misconceptions about legacy and the meaning of life. What does it truly mean to live purposefully in a world that constantly compels us to perpetuate this cycle? While you may not entirely concur with Schopenhauer's conclusions, you will undoubtedly perceive the narrative of parenthood and the meaning of life through an entirely new, deeply contemplative, and perhaps unsettling lens. And most importantly, you'll carry a question few dare to confront. Do we create life because it is inherently good, or simply because we've never been allowed to think otherwise? Throughout most of human history, a story has been told, ceaselessly. A man and a woman exchange glances, feeling an intense, seemingly private, even sacred attraction. Yet hidden deep beneath the romantic verses and sweet promises, something far older than either of them silently holds sway. A force that existed before all languages, all kingdoms, all religious beliefs. Schopenhauer named it the will, a blind, relentless impulse, compelling life to persist at any cost. You likely still want to believe your cherished dreams are your own, that the decision to love, marry, and bring a child into this world is a free choice, born purely from the heart. But take a step back, and you'll begin to notice a pattern that has repeated ceaselessly throughout thousands of years of history. Still the same desires, the same rituals, the same hope, merely cloaked in new guises with each passing era. This pattern existed long before you were born, and it continues ceaselessly, regardless of whether happiness is found. Let's envision the ancient world. A farmer diligently plowing his fields, a majestic king on his throne, both were instructed by their elders and priests to bear sons to continue their lineage. Not for joy or love, but because the land needed hands to cultivate, the throne required an heir to maintain power, and the tribe needed more manpower to endure the harsh winter ahead. That yearning was adorned with noble words, but hidden deep beneath that ornate facade was the same unconscious, primal imperative: procreate or perish. That is what Schopenhauer meant by the will. Not a rational plan, nor a grand design, but merely a blind, relentless compulsion, driving every creature to replicate itself, regardless of the cost. Looking back at the currents of history, he realized that, whether you are a farmer sowing seeds or an emperor raising armies, this impulse to create new life rarely stems from personal satisfaction, but primarily to sustain and nourish the endless current of existence. Kings believed they held dominion, farmers believed they chose freely, but in truth, it was the will that governed both. Have you ever wondered if your beliefs about family and the meaning of life are truly the result of personal reflection, or merely an echo of ancient patterns permeating through culture, religion, and even your own biological makeup? Nature cunningly bestows upon instinct intense surges of attraction, creating a fleeting illusion of fulfillment. It cares not whether the beings it creates find happiness, nor does it pause to tally the suffering added to this world. It is simply a relentless impetus, driving everything forward. Do you find Schopenhauer's insight into love to be so stark? He argued that what we commonly call love is, in essence, merely a strategy of life to perpetuate the species. It cunningly seduces you with the illusion of free choice, yet in truth, it guides you to the same outcome all animals and insects strive for: procreation. Have you ever looked back at the long lineage of ancestors stretching behind you? Most of them were born, toiled, bore children, endured countless hardships, and then passed away, their names long forgotten. Generation after generation, repeating the same pattern, though they often believed they were breaking free or forging something entirely new. Yet that fateful cycle continues ceaselessly. This is precisely the trap Schopenhauer so acutely described, a pattern so ancient and deeply ingrained in our subconscious that it seems to have become destiny. We inherit not only the blood of our parents, but also the profound impulse that compelled them to create our existence. Did you know that the desires we feel are our own, are, in fact, older than the twinkling stars in the night sky? Recognizing this truth is not a call to despair. On the contrary, it is an invitation to a profound awakening. How can you confront a force you haven't even named? Naming it is the first step towards breaking free from its hold. Consider, even if only in your mind, how many dreams, how many sacrifices, and how many relationships in your life truly belong to you? And how many of them are merely echoes of an ancient impulse, existing for millennia? Have you ever considered how many times people bring a new life into this world not from a carefully considered choice, but simply because they feel it's what they must do? Why do we constantly chase promises of meaning, yet so few dare to pause and question them? Schopenhauer's message is not to end life, but to recognize that the unconscious impulse driving your life is not the true freedom you yearn for. He believed that conscious living requires us to confront that impulse directly, and from there, make a choice. Will we yield to it, or will we rise to master it? The core issue here is not whether humanity should continue to exist. Rather, the real question is, can you, as an independent, thinking mind, recognize the current that has swept away countless others before you, and do you possess the will to avoid being carried away by it? The age-old trap is not an immutable natural law you must obey. In truth, it is merely a pattern you are entirely capable of recognizing. And the moment you recognize it, the first crack will appear in that vicious cycle. There is a truth few know, and often it is only discovered when it's too late. When a new life enters the world, an invisible pact seems to be forged. The price is not merely financial figures, it is years of attention, boundless energy, and even the small personal freedoms that once defined your sense of vitality. Schopenhauer defined that as life itself. He considered it an investment that never yields a return. According to him, every new desire draws us into more struggles, and nothing can accelerate desire and struggle faster than taking responsibility for another human being. Try to imagine the true meaning of freedom. It is the right to wake up whenever you wish, to freely pursue an idea, to travel anywhere, to start anew, to make mistakes, and learn without ever threatening the existence of others. For most, the journey of parenthood closes those doors, not intentionally, but simply because a child's needs cannot be postponed. Recent studies have made this picture clearer than ever. Large-scale studies from Europe and North America have consistently revealed a reality. On average, reported life satisfaction sharply declines in the early years of parenthood and often does not fully recover until children have grown up and left the nest. Rates of stress, anxiety, and insomnia have all skyrocketed. Concurrently, couples report a significant decline in their relationship satisfaction. Meanwhile, adults without children often report a more stable life, stronger finances, and greater mastery over their time. These figures are not meant to criticize families. Rather, they unveil a silent cost hidden behind society's promise that children bring absolute fulfillment. For many, the initial shock isn't the sleepless nights or financial burdens, but the gradual realization that their personal inner growth, unwritten books, untaken journeys, or unlearned skills are being indefinitely postponed. Have you ever considered that in this life, we are granted but a single existence, with merely a few decades at the peak of our energy and sharpest intellect? And for every moment you expend, do you realize it is a moment irrevocably lost? Philosopher Schopenhauer once observed that this is life's cruel calculus. The will to live relentlessly propels us to pursue our duties, never allowing us to pause and question if all of it is truly worthwhile. Imagine a 25-year-old man brimming with boundless ambitions, convinced he will forge a brilliant career, explore every corner of the world, and become a figure of influence. Then, upon reaching 30, he welcomes his first child. By 35, his small family gains a second member. And the vast world he once dreamed of suddenly shrinks, now revolving solely around work schedules, the burden of debt, and countless obligations. Of course, his love for his children remains undiminished, yet he suddenly realizes that the part of him that once burned with a desire for greatness has now receded into a terrifying silence. Or consider another woman with an exceptional intellect and research who at 23 yearned only to dedicate her most vibrant youthful years to her academic pursuits. She was reassured that she had plenty of time, that she could perfectly balance both. But then, those precious years slipped away, lost in the haze of family care and endless compromises. And when her children have grown, the flame of passion that once burned brightly, driving her work, has now completely dwindled, leaving only ashes. This is not a tale of love's failure. Rather, it is the inevitable consequence of a cruel, irreversible trade-off. A trade-off that most of us silently accept, yet never dare to name explicitly. They still believe they can wholeheartedly pursue their personal aspirations, while devotedly nurturing another life to maturity. Only a fortunate few manage to do so. For the majority, they come to a harsh realization. Our time, energy, and attention can only be spent once. So ask yourself, if you were given a single priceless coin, capable of shaping your own mind and destiny, or of guiding a new life into this world, would you pause for at least a moment before deciding to give it away? Would you take a moment to carefully consider that immense trade-off? What Schopenhauer truly yearned for was not the disappearance of humanity, but for each of us to clearly and profoundly recognize this exchange, so that we might realize that in most cultures, this momentous choice has never truly been presented as a choice at all. It is always enveloped by countless narratives and societal expectations, to the extent that few ever truly pause to question the steep price they must pay. Have you ever truly asked yourself what the real cost is? It's not merely money. It is the gradual narrowing of your life's seemingly infinite horizons. It's an unspoken acceptance, a truth difficult to articulate, that your precious days are no longer entirely yours to freely shape. Is this relinquishment truly worth it? For some, it's a worthy exchange, yet for others, it festers into a persistent, unassuageable regret. Do you realize that comprehending this is the very key to reclaiming a measure of your autonomy, your dominion over your own existence? Peer a little deeper. Beyond the radiant smiles in photographs, might there lie an invisible covenant? One not inscribed on parchment, but etched into the very fabric of your time, your life. And once sealed, can it be broken without rending your heart, without inflicting profound wounds? Have you ever sensed that a decision of such magnitude warrants more profound scrutiny than a mere fleeting assumption? If so, then you are already distinct, set apart from the multitude who have never once dared to question it. Is it then selfish to meticulously scrutinize this pact before you seal it? Far from it. On the contrary, it is the inaugural act, the genesis of profound self-awareness. Schopenhauer's seemingly somber philosophy, is it a summons to renounce life? No, it is not a decree of rejection, but a potent challenge for us to truly gauge, to appraise its inherent worth. He compelled us to confront a thorny question, one that most individuals endeavor to evade throughout their entire existence. Thus, before you relinquish those precious years, years that can never be reclaimed, do you truly pause and discern this pact for its unvarnished essence? Do you recall from the tender age of childhood, we were ceaselessly told the same narrative? One must leave a mark, one must perpetuate their bloodline, one must live on through their progeny. This notion is truly both ancient and alluring, is it not? It carries the dulcet promise that you might vanquish death, might sow your name into the future to endure eternally. But pause for a moment, draw a deep breath, and ask yourself, whose story is this truly? Is this the dream you genuinely yearn for, or merely another mask donned by the will to perpetuate life's ceaseless cycle? When Schopenhauer gazed upon the currents of history, he did not perceive the noble heroes we often envision. Instead, he beheld a vast, unending procession of humanity, men and women alike, who believed that through their progeny they were preserving their very selves. From pharaohs inscribing their names in stone, to monarchs forging mighty dynasties, down to peasants begetting sons to secure ancestral lands, generation after generation, all harbored a singular conviction: I shall persist through my descendants. Yet have you ever paused to ponder, where are they now? Majestic monuments have long since crumbled. Names that once held sway over nations are now but faint annotations in the annals of history. Are you aware that for every 100 souls, 99 will utterly vanish from human memory within a mere few decades? Though the child may inherit the bloodline, do they truly bear your soul, your singular essence? And then, in but a fleeting moment, even that vestige of lineage shall gradually dissolve, fading into the boundless, immeasurable ocean of humanity. Have you ever contemplated legacy? Schopenhauer unequivocally declared that what the vast majority of humanity terms legacy is, in truth, no form of immortality as we so readily conceive. What then is legacy? It is merely the ceaseless perpetuation of identical endeavors, aspirations, and struggles bequeathed to another, one who neither desired nor solicited such a burden. Could it be that believing this gives meaning to our lives is merely a confusion between the survival of a species and the eternal persistence of the individual self? Consider the mighty empires that once bled an entire people dry, solely to uphold and perpetuate a royal name, a noble bloodline. What about the soldier who bravely sacrificed himself for the flag, with the fervent belief that future generations would forever engrave his noble sacrifice into their memory? Yet does history truly remember them? Their names are barely whispered, the world retains only scattered fragments, and even those fragments are constantly re-scripted with each new age. Still, the myth of immortality stubbornly endures. Even in this modern era, do you sense an unspoken pressure that says, if I don't have children, my life will be meaningless? But what is that feeling ultimately, if not a narrative passed down through generations, from ancestors themselves propelled by the very same tale? To see this clearly is not to disparage children, but to recognize a profound inversion, a paradox. We individuals often believe we are sowing our spirit, our essence, into the future. But the truth is, it is the ancient will, the primal instinct for survival, that is sowing itself through each of us. This truth might startle you, perhaps even offend the individual ego. It reveals that your quest for a personal legacy through your offspring is not a glorious triumph over death, but merely a form of evasion, a refusal to confront it. It asserts that the meaning of life you yearn for cannot be borrowed from succeeding generations. Thus, Schopenhauer presented a challenge both simple and profoundly difficult. If you truly wish to live a life of purpose, you must relinquish the illusion that you will persist in the bloodline of others. You must bravely confront the truth of your finite existence and forge whatever meaning you can within your allotted time, rather than deferring it to a distant future. What transpires when you perceive this myth for its true nature? A peculiar wisdom will ignite. You will no longer exist as an anonymous link in an unending chain, but begin to live as a mind fully conscious of its fleeting, singular span. And from that profound realization, entirely new possibilities will unfold before you. We are raised, nourished by narratives that love is the most sacred summons, that those who find true love will attain wholeness, that marrying, building, and raising a family is not merely natural, but a noble endeavor. But how many have ever paused to ask, where does that story truly originate, and whose agenda does it ultimately serve? According to Schopenhauer, nature has executed its most cunning deception through the emotion we label love. It artfully drapes the blind will to procreate in a cloak of romantic poetic language, compelling each individual to willingly dedicate themselves to a grander purpose, entirely unbeknownst to them. Older and colder than our own romantic reveries, let us consider the myriad arranged marriages that have transpired across centuries. Indeed, some couples had never even laid eyes on each other until the very day of their nuptials. Evidently, such unions were not forged upon a foundation of love, but rather for alliances of land, power, or simply to secure an heir. Yet, astonishingly, even under those conditions, songs and ceremonies still resonated with hymns of destiny and eternal devotion. Though the lexicon may shift, do you perceive that the fundamental objective remains unchanged? In this contemporary world, we often boast of our freedom, yet do you discern that the ancient patterns still subtly persist? Have you ever pondered whether the compulsion to pair off, establish a family, and demonstrate maturity through child-rearing truly stems from your deepest desires or merely serves to complete an implicit cultural script? Those who falter, who hesitate before these expectations, are they not branded selfish? And those who dare to stray from the prescribed path are warned that their ultimate destiny will be a solitary demise. Remarkably, guilt now usurps the role once held by priests and monarchs, profoundly dictating our lives. So, let us meticulously scrutinize the intricate mechanisms silently at work behind all of this. Do you not observe how advertising relentlessly peddles an idealized image of the perfect couple in their dream home? Furthermore, families and creeds ceaselessly extol self-sacrifice as a noble virtue worthy of emulation. Do you perceive that even legal and economic frameworks continue to bestow special favor upon marriage and parenthood, far surpassing other modes of existence? We believe we're making free choices, but are you aware that the path was illuminated, marked, and glorified long before any decision was even contemplated? Ironically, this is a prison perfectly camouflaged beneath the guise of love. Do you not perceive it? A collection of expectations that profess to honor your emotions, yet subtly shackle you with myriad duties. With the burden of nurturing the next generation, with inherent debts and obligations, into a mold that perpetually demands more than it ever bestows? Schopenhauer's message was never meant to ridicule genuine affection or sincere friendship. What, then, was his true aim? His singular purpose was to unveil the mask that conceals the truth. Are you aware that what you perceive as a profound personal bond is, at least in part, nature's intricate instrument to ensure the perpetuation of the species? Precisely because you deem it an entirely personal emotion, you will seldom dare to question the weighty duties and responsibilities that accompany it, will you not? Indeed, the revelation of this stark truth can prove profoundly disquieting. Though it may initially manifest as a profound betrayal, it is the ensuing wrath that possesses the power to illuminate all. And that is the first spark of freedom, igniting the moment you realize you possess the absolute right to withdraw from the pre-written narrative and ask yourself, what is it that I truly desire? Have you ever pondered if love dissipates once we see through its myriad veils? In truth, it remains undiminished. Rather than a compulsion to conform, love transmutes into your own deliberate choice. And here lies the intrigue. This metamorphosis from being a mere pawn to acting by one's own volition is the very portal to an entirely different existence. When power is invoked, most of us envision the capacity to conquer, to possess, to create abundantly, do we not? Yet Schopenhauer discerned a far more profound power, the ability to resist the blind allure of one's own will. To dare utter no to the instinct that perpetually whispers, continue the cycle, is how you affirm that you are more than a mere instrument serving nature's dictates. This refusal does not signify an aversion to life, rather, it is the unmistakable hallmark of a truly awakened mind. A mind that has grasped the fundamental distinction between self-determination and coercion. Schopenhauer termed these singular individuals the rare few, those who dared to disengage from the prevailing current long enough to perceive its true essence with clarity. Centuries later, Nietzsche too spoke of higher men, those prepared to shoulder the burden of freedom rather than readily capitulating to the comfort of the herd. Their rebellion manifests not through violence or clamorous slogans, but in a silent, deeply private resolve to forge the meaning of their own existence. Even in our contemporary era, do you discern this spirit's presence? These are the minimalists, willing to relinquish status and possessions in exchange for invaluable time. Or the thinkers who choose not to perpetuate the struggle, but instead focus on mastering themselves. And the creators who consecrate the prime years of their craft, leaving behind a monumental idea, not merely a name. In a world that incessantly whispers yes, to dare utter no is not weakness. It is a potent act of self-mastery. It is how you delineate clear boundaries for your own being. And the ancient impulse perpetually seeks to render you an instrument. This is the true potency of refusal, not a desperate plea, but an assertion of sovereignty. It enables you to perceive that you are not merely a link in an endless chain, but possess the absolute right to imbue your own brief, unrepeatable existence with meaning. Let's look back at the path we've trodden, the blind will that propelled the ancient loop, the immeasurable cost that stole years no one can reclaim, the myth of a legacy promising immortality, but ultimately delivering only repetition, the prison masked as love, and finally, the rare power of refusal. Do you see a common thread? All of it points to an obvious truth, one you may never have considered. You were never destined to be merely a servant to that loop. You may have been born into that loop, but are you bound to obey it forever? Certainly not. Have you ever wondered if we are truly the masters of our own lives? Or, throughout history, have humans merely been pawns, pulled by invisible forces like poverty, outdated customs, the yearning for progeny, or community pressure, all while believing they were making free choices? But the astonishing truth is that life's script was predetermined, written long ago, even before they uttered their first cry. So, where is the starting point of true wisdom? The philosopher Schopenhauer pointed out that it is precisely the moment we realize we are part of the game and see through its nature within our own lives. Nietzsche posed an even greater challenge. Do you dare to affirm or deny according to your own will, living as a creator of meaning rather than merely an unconscious echo of natural commands? This is a bold transformation few dare to undertake, to step away from the current of life long enough to observe it, and then realize that the true value of a human existence lies not in the quantity of what they create, but in the depth of thought of the mind that lived that life. No, this is not negative nihilism. On the contrary, this is a powerful starting point for your personal autonomy. Can you visualize this stark difference? One person simply lives according to the world's expectations, marries, has children, works tirelessly, then becomes exhausted, leaving burdens for the next generation to continue a similar loop of struggle. But another person dares to stop, confronts the script predetermined since ancient times, and asks themselves, ultimately, what was I born to pursue? Is it the unconscious continuation of an old pattern or a journey of self-mastery? And then they make a different choice, to invest entirely in knowledge, in profound understanding. In their creative journey, in shaping their finite life, the first person merely serves the common will, while the second, they bravely step out of all frameworks to write the rules for their own life. When you reach this threshold, you will feel a strange power, an inner stillness. You will no longer be bothered by pursuing approval from others, nor will you fear rejection. You will no longer confuse the clamor and chaos of the crowd with a mandatory command to be obeyed. You stand firm, a mind fully aware of the brief time you have, determined to dedicate it entirely to values that cannot be transmitted by instinct alone. This is a spectacular sublimation, from a passive pawn to the true master of one's own life. It is not escaping life, but liberating oneself from unconscious obedience. Live as if every choice you make is entirely your own, and see freedom not as an empty slogan, but as a strict discipline of life. The world will continue to demand that you play a predetermined role, but once you have seen through that pattern, those demands will completely lose their controlling power. You will realize that refusal is entirely possible, and making choices with full awareness is the ultimate form of power. You have bravely stepped through the dark areas that most people refuse to face, refuse to set foot in. You've delved deep into the narratives that have shaped the world, the promises of legacy, the veneration of family ideals, or the gentle veneer of duty, and you've seen through to the intricate machinery operating beneath it all. That vision, that stark truth, is certainly not comfortable, and inherently, it was never meant to be. Do you hold something that transcends a mere opinion or a fleeting trend? In essence, it's a profound awakening, the realization that the vortex which swept countless others before you will not be able to control you. In a world where conformity seems to be the rule, do you know what the most truly revolutionary act is? It is daring to think for yourself, to create for yourself. Have you ever felt you belong to a special group, a silent yet powerful community? These are the ones who dare to question the most ancient commands, those deeply ingrained in both our instincts and our culture. Separating yourself from the common current of the crowd has never been easy, has it? It demands extraordinary courage to face all doubts, and the patience to forge a life not based on any borrowed meaning. So what truly defines the boundary between a free spirit and a life in shackles? It is this. If this journey of discovery has ever troubled you, yet simultaneously stirred something deep within, a yearning to delve deeper, to ask more challenging questions, to seek out the raw truths that the majority often avoids, then congratulations, you are officially a part of that special group. Here, our goal is not to seek fleeting comfort, but absolute clarity. We don't need empty slogans, but a profound understanding. So, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel, continue following this journey, and add your voice to the circle of those who never turn a blind eye to the truth. Do you think this is merely a form of entertainment? Not at all. This is a conscious process of shedding, step by step, the illusions that have clouded our minds. And one final thing, engrave it deeply as an indelible mark in your mind. You owe no external will or expectation. This life entirely is your own.